Can you imagine in 2025 becoming a software engineer? My 16-year-old's thinking about it. I don't know. Would you suggest it? Well, we're going to interview somebody today that helps people do just that. Brian Jenney's here, owns a company called Parsity, helps train people, career changers, to become software engineers. Does it still make sense in 2025? Check out today's podcast on Product Driven. To survive and thrive, you must adopt a product-driven mindset. And we're back for another episode of Product Driven. This is your host, Matt Watson. Today, very excited to be joined by Mr. Brian Jenney, who runs Parsity, who helps people change careers, become software engineers. And in the world of AI, where I'm wondering does that make any sense? I've got a 16-year-old who wants to be a software engineer. So maybe Brian's going to tell us if it's still a good choice or not a good choice. So Brian, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Hot topic.
I'm thinking about becoming a software engineer myself. After all these years, I'm considering it.
Yeah.
Can you help me? Can you help me learn to code? Because honestly, since I learned to code 25 years ago, I don't feel like I know how to code anymore. Kids these days, all the JavaScript.
Yep.
When I grew up, going uphill both ways to school, learning JavaScript with IE5, I came from a different era. I hate JavaScript.
I bet. Yeah, that's kind of thing. I've learned to love it, my career, but I've been using Python lately, and now I kind of hate that a little bit too, using TypeScript. I think there's what they say, there's two types of languages, the ones everybody hates and the ones that nobody knows or something like that. So, yeah.
So when you're teaching people to code, by the way, what do you teach them?
It depends. We have a fairly unique way of doing things. We usually start with JavaScript. I mean, let's be honest, it's easy to start with. It's incredibly hireable skill, especially in the US on the coasts, and it sets you up easily enough to dip into other programming languages. But for a lot of people, we also go with let's go with Python. Some people start with C#.
Yes.
Some people start with I use C#. I went from JavaScript to C# in my first role that I had. I learned enough front end on my own. I got hired, and they say, "Hey, this is a C#.NET SQL shop," and I'm like, "Oh," and I had to learn that on the job, and it was really cool.
Whatever you do, don't tell TypeScript developers that they're actually C# developers and they don't know
yet. And the same dude that made the same dude, he made type. Yeah, and now I've learned to. I hated TypeScript for a while, and I've come around to really enjoying it. And I always wanted to go back to C#, but I'm
just the worst version of C#, basically.
I like that. Yeah, but now I'm using it again. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I forgot about using types. Now I'm like, how the hell did I write all this JavaScript for stuff? It feels so dangerous.
I did a little project in Blazor one day.
Okay.
And that was kind of mind-blowing. It's I'm writing all this C# code that runs in the browser, and there's some kind of magic going on in the browser that's running C#. It's I don't know how this works, but it's magic.
Now I think there's some sort of WASM or something like that. There's some sort of thing in browsers that they can run all Rust or whatever in the browser, or Python or something.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I'm hoping the WebAssembly saves us one day and JavaScript dies. I don't think it's going to happen.
It'll never.
Because you keep teaching people JavaScript. It's not going to stop.
It'll never stop. It never can stop. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how did you start Parsity? What led you to be hey, I'm going to train people to go from working at McDonald's to be software engineers?
Yeah, and I'll be completely honest. There's fewer of that kind of success story than it's a person that was already kind of software adjacent that gets in. We definitely have some stories of people I don't know how to code at all, and they come in and we teach them how, and they've changed their careers dramatically. But so I started off around 30, learning how to code after kind of a shady past, and I just wanted to be a front end developer. I had no clue. I was super ignorant. I was like, you can get paid to do this? Oh yeah, I want to do this. Then this is really cool. I'm like, this is a ton of fun. And that changed my life in many ways. I mean, it changed my career. So I saw how much that was a life-changing experience. I'm like, wow, now I have this cool job. I enjoy what I do. I'm getting to learn all the time around really smart people. It just was a massive shift from what I had been doing in my past. And then I started working at coding boot camps in the Bay Area. And I was teaching people, and I was like, oh, now I'm learning too. So I'm teaching, and at the same time, I'm learning at these other boot camps where I'm teaching, and I'm seeing people in there, and I'm seeing them struggle, and I'm seeing these boot camps just increase and expand and get more corporate-y. You know what I mean? Where it's like, how many people can we stuff in these classrooms, teach them some bare bones JavaScript stuff, and just kind of say, yeah, good luck. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. Right. So I actually didn't ever want to teach people how to code much, to be honest. I'm a software engineer. I've done that for the last 11 years or so. And then from LinkedIn, I wrote a lot on LinkedIn. The owner of Parsity, which is a coding bootcamp, reached out to me and said, hey, dude, you want to like partner? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll help you with the curriculum because I'm like, I'm into that kind of stuff. He seemed to be doing everything right. It was really small. He had actual good outcomes that were all documented. I'm like, wow, you're doing something right here. He was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I want to pursue my own business. Do you want to take it over? And that's how I ended up with Parsity. And since then, we've taken some other dramatic turns and made it into a much more, even smaller, kind of more niche focused group of people that like teaching how to code, but also,
Okay.
yeah, like we see a lot of like personal development skills as part of like this whole journey as well.
Well, so what skills you talk about like tech adjacent, like
Yeah,
what kind of skills do you see work well for making the move to tech?
man, I see there's a
Got to
few
be
types.
plumbers because we're basically
Plumbers.
plumbers. We just move data around. That's all we really do.
That's kind of feels
We're
like, yeah,
basically
you're like a JSON handler,
pretty
Can you
much
handle, yeah, can you handle the JSON?
inputs and
It
outputs.
that exactly. But we see people that like we have some people that come from like QA background. That's a pretty like a clear transition. We have people that have teachers, lawyers, a couple doctors, which is kind of shocking. Like, why would you want to go into software? You're a doctor. That's like the coveted thing to be. But honestly, like when I look at all the different people we've worked with over the years, and I try to look at like one or two aspects of what makes them actually succeed, it's almost never their former career. It's more like how disciplined are you as a person really to like do this? Because most people stop studying after they're like 18 or 22. So if you're 30 or even 25 and the last time you really picked up a book or learned anything and had to sit down and really study it was like at 18 or 19, that's honestly where we take the most time to teach people. Like, how do you have a schedule you stick to? How can you, because the curriculum is, let's be honest, you could learn how to code online. Like, you don't have to go to a school to learn how to code, but few people ever even get out of a boot camp and get a job. So it's more like how much can you actually spend time to do this? Like, do you have the discipline to get up and do the thing every day and not just fall off the map when things get a little tough? And how do you like learn how to learn? Because that's also really difficult for people to do.
There are so many things I want to ask you about
Yeah.
related to this, but I I do want to say, my previous company, Stackify, we
Hmm.
worked with a local kind of, I guess I'll call it a boot camp kind of place. You'd go for like 12 weeks or something, or
Yeah.
6 months, and you like learn to code, and they charge like a fortune to go to this place.
Yep.
We hired 3 or 4 people from there, which they were awesome.
Hmm.
One of them honestly was a manager at McDonald's, and then
That's
went
nuts.
through this place, and we hired them.
Yeah.
And the guy was like one of our best developers. And then there was another lady. She was previously a mortician. She was a
Interesting.
mortician. She
My
worked at
grandmother was a
funeral homes.
mortician.
She like
Yeah. Okay.
scraped dead bodies off the
Yeah.
ground before the
Yep.
shovel. So it's like fixing bugs somewhere. And she did she went to that boot camp, and then she ended up being like one of the teachers at the
Hmm.
boot camp. And so
Yep.
we hired her to help actually run our support team. And she was amazing, like absolutely phenomenal. Like
Very
we
cool.
had really good success
Yeah.
hiring people that way. And I think the most important thing for me is like you're looking for people that are just really creative, have a lot of
Hmm.
problem solving skills. They understand business problems. They think about business problems.
Yes. Yeah.
The one sort of study research that I always see that I always find interesting is
Hmm.
actually software engineers that have the least amount of education make the most money and are the best developers compared to the ones that have the most education.
That's really interesting. I've never seen
Did you
this
know
study.
that?
I did
Did you
not
know
know
that?
that. I gotta
Yeah.
cite that from now on in my marketing material.
And you know why, right? If you stop and think about that for a second, you're like, you know why?
I can only imagine because we've seen this like at Parsity, like people that have like they come in with a bit of like one life experience and two they now I'm like losing my train of thought because I'm thinking like if you were already in a business and you kind of understand how that works or you worked like had a career maybe in like a white collar profession or something like that and you get into software, I have to imagine that you're taking some of that life experience and some of that like outside perspective into that rather than a person that went and got a CS degree and maybe thinks really objectively about like solving problems and scalability and less about business context. But I think I'm wrong. So now I'm curious what it really is.
The people that naturally get computers and technology and coding, they're really good at learning on their own. They just tinker with it and figure it
Mm,
all out, right? Like they get halfway through school or whatever, and they're like, I don't need to do this. Like I learned enough. I went and got a job, and I'm doing this. And I'm like really a self learner,
yeah.
right? Versus the ones I'm like, well, mom and dad are paying for me to go to college, so I'm going to college for 5 years. I got my master's degree. I'm ready to get my first job.
Yeah. Have you ever
I'm a
seen this?
professional student, and now I think I'm going to do this software engineering thing.
Yeah, the practical side versus like the theoretical side, they
Yeah.
don't quite overlap a lot, you know. There's this dude on YouTube, if you've heard of him, Coding Jesus.
No.
Okay, coding Jesus. Real briefly, he'll invite like software developers on the show, and they'll be like either self-taught or CS grads. And sometimes I'm kind of shocked. He had a couple CS grads anonymously on the show, and he's like, "Let me do a mock interview with you on this massive
Yeah.
online, audience." And they didn't know what an array was. A couple didn't know how to do a for loop. I was like, "This is kind of scary." And these weren't like lame, no-name colleges. These people were at least claiming they went to some well-known schools, and I'm like, "That's pretty scary."
Well, it was interesting, and I saw these stats from like Robert Half or one of these things, like one
Oh
of these
yeah.
big industry things, like would show this reporting, and it's the self-taught ones. It's people that are self-taught are always the best, and as you mentioned earlier, it's a lifelong learning career. When I started my career 25 years ago, I was doing Visual Basic 6 and like web development barely existed, and I've since then built a whole bunch of things that are also now extinct, like ActiveX and Silverlight and
Oh,
Flash
yep,
and like
yep.
all this crap. It's all dead, right?
Yeah.
I wrote a blog post once that went kind of viral, and it was about how my entire career was now technical debt or basically dead. Like everything I've ever done for like 25 years.
It's a long
That's the
time.
nature of software development, right? Like odds
Yeah.
are most of the things you ever build is all going to get thrown away eventually. Like over time, it all dies. But anyways, like yeah, self-taught is huge, right? So it's like, if you guys are looking for the right kind of students, are like super motivated, self-taught, they got a problem solving, they're creative, like
Yeah. And I think a lot of it's
sky's the
also like,
limit for them.
yeah, oh, for sure. Like in our marketing, I think we tend to get the right people. Like I notice a lot of coding boot camps, like they have one criteria: can you pay? And that's just
Yeah.
not. That's why we're not that big. I don't see us ever becoming some large business. We'll take around 50 to 100 people a year at the very, very, very maximum. That is as many as we can possibly handle. Other coding boot camps, I think they do that like a month. And we, have a phone call with the people. We say, hey, if you're a get rich quick scheme type of person, this is the slowest not get rich quick scheme you can ever do. So we try to also just like get those people out of the way because we see that they're generally not going to make it. If your only thought is money, then you're not probably going to make it here.
And the quality of the students that come out of these schools is so critical, right? Like,
Yes.
and if I'm an employer, I want a relationship with you. I'm like, hey, I trust if they went to this school and they passed that I would hire them. And, most all of my employees are in the Philippines, and there's some colleges near us that if you told me you graduated from this college, like I would hire you. I wouldn't even ask you one question. I'm like, I
Whoa.
know if you graduated from this college, you're like a genius and you're going to be amazing because I've hired so many people from this college, right? And you might say that
Interesting.
here, like, oh, if you went to Stanford or you went to MIT
Yeah.
or something, you're like, okay, I'm hiring this guy, whatever. But there's very few schools like that. And I think one of the problems we see with software engineering around the world, there are some countries, I won't name the main problem, but there are some countries where it feels like anybody who wants to get a software engineering degree can get one. And maybe, like you said, they can buy one. They pay for the school, they graduate.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole lot of these people trying to find a job, and not very many of them are super qualified. Quality
the
is really
thing.
important.
That's the thing. I was a hiring manager a couple years ago. I mean, I still help hire. I've helped hire in every single team I've been on, actually, in the last 11 years. And I think people overestimate their competition a lot. Like I was doing a lot of screening for people. I'm like, I was a little shocked at the quality of candidates we were getting. Now, maybe that's because I've never worked in big tech. I worked at fairly no-name places and non-tech organizations. But the people we were getting that were graduating mostly from coding boot camps, I'll just be honest, the quality was low. And I didn't feel like I was asking very difficult questions. And I was like, people overestimate. They're thinking, oh, all these, Google engineers are going for my job. I'm like, no, they're not. They're not
And they
going for your
charge
job
somebody
at the
probably
local thing.
$20,000 to go through that boot camp or something stupid.
That was the thing. I'm like, geez, yeah, you got. I'm like, what? Why? You know? And I think it's this idea that
And
you
whoever
can
will
pay for this
pay,
piece of
let
paper.
them
Yeah,
go.
if you can pay, let them in. But it's the same problem. I see people do this. You know, with MBAs, I think especially is like the one that pops in my mind. Yeah, I'm gonna get this piece of paper, and it's gonna be my ticket to employment. And I'm like,
Yeah.
really, no one cares. Especially, I'm in the Bay
No.
Area. I've never asked anybody to see their degree. I've never been asked to see my degree. In almost every, like 99% of the places I've applied to, no one cares.
I
Like, can you do the thing?
that's a big thing at Full Scale that I always have to remind our HR team. It's like I'd rather hire the people actually that don't have a college degree because they're probably more self-taught. But they're like,
Interesting.
no,
Okay.
they've got to have a 4-year degree. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, nope, don't care, don't care, don't care, don't care.
Yeah, don't care. It's like, because honestly, you're going to go through the same exam that everybody else is going to get. Like,
Can
you're
you do
going
the
to
job?
have to do the coding. Can you do the job? Yeah, that's really all people care about, which is one of the cool. That's what is really intrigued me about this profession in general. Because I was like, oh, okay, do I need to go back to college? Because I was already tinkering around and just having fun. I'm like, oh, this is just fun. And I loved like just like laddering up, like, okay, I learned HTML and CSS. What's next? Okay, jQuery at the time. Okay, how does that work? Okay, now I'm putting it at the web page. Now, how does a backend server work? Okay, and then I'm just figuring these things out. I'm thinking, okay, do I need a degree? And then it was like, oh, if you went to Stanford or MIT, or you're just some rando, you're going to get the same coding challenges, like when you step into the foot at Google or Meta or whatever, or at the local company down the street. And that was crazy to me because I can't think of any other profession where that's the case. It can't be a lawyer or a doctor and just say, I'm really good at what I do. And people say, oh, cool, you're in, you know?
Time for the surgery challenge.
Yeah,
Here's
time
the
for
brain.
this. I'm a junior self-taught surgeon.
Time for brain surgery. Here we go. This is your
Exactly.
trial.
Yeah.
So, how do you see AI impacting this? And I want to start with I think we're going to have software engineers forever and whatever.
Yeah.
I think the role may change, and we can talk about that. But the first thing I want to ask you about though is like, how do you teach people now to do software engineering? Because if you only teach them to write code with AI, they never really learn what the code does, and they can't read the code, and it's all going to look like gibberish to them. But if they only write the code and they never use the AI, then that's a whole other problem. And then they can't keep up with their peers that are using AI that might run circles around with them or whatever. So like, how the hell do we navigate that?
That's been so tough. And I've talked about this with my partner because we often have differing opinions on this. Our kind of rule now is like, you cannot use AI for the first X amount of like months until you don't really need to use it. You can use it to triangulate, to help you to help reinforce learning, to help you understand why your code might be behaving the way it does. But if you're using it to actually generate lots of code at the learning stage, when you're really learning the basics like syntax and like logic and control, and you can't build something on your own, you're going to really be shooting yourself in the foot. Because I've seen this happen where I've met people like, oh, I can build this really cool thing. And I'm like, no, you can't. You think you can. And then in the interview where they're not allowed to use AI, they completely fail. But then we had an internship. And some of the students were like, well, now is it time to use AI? And I'm like, now it is a good idea to probably use AI because honestly, in this business context, we're working within this company for an internship and using it now is probably a good idea. But having to use it in a smart way, like just generating tons and tons of code with Cursor or Claude, that's just building a house of cards. So it's really difficult to like tell people like, okay, now you can use it now that you don't have to use it. But now that you're using it, you have to basically be almost like a senior developer, which you're not. And so now you have to
smarter
also
than the AI.
You have to be, it's like you have to not have to use it. And when you don't have to use it, that's when you should use it.
So
That's
here's a
kind of
good
the hard
analogy.
Yeah.
Here's a good analogy of this. Like, I don't know Spanish, but I can go to ChatGPT and I can be like, translate this from English to Spanish. And I can be like, okay, job done. Here you go.
Yep.
I don't know what any of it says. Now, maybe I know a few words, but if I don't understand the grammar, and I don't understand that in Spanish, you say car red instead of red car, and like the order of things and like how all the sentence structure is different. It's different than in English, right? And if you don't have those fundamental knowledge of the things, like it would just all look like gibberish, right? You're like, I don't know. So what ChatGPT said, ship it.
Yep. I worked with
That's
a team
scary.
of data scientists. We were building a prototype at work, and really, I always admire data scientists. Like they're to me geniuses, and they're building this web app with me, and they don't know anything about building web apps. So we're building it in Next.js and React or whatever, and it looks good. And when I look at the code, I'm like, this is 1,000-line files of mess. You try to change one thing and it breaks apart. Nothing is like composable. There's no separation of concerns. It was just a mess. And I'm like thinking, this is the problem, right? Like, because you can be really efficient with these tools, not really know what you're doing, and build something that looks pretty good. And when you're building, and especially when you're junior and you're building something for the first time, that's when these tools are really, really effective. Because like you're starting from a blank slate. And you're like, oh, cool, I just scaffolded this entire web app. Geez, what's the point of even hiring me? But like, that's not your job. You're almost never going to step into a company and build something from complete scratch. And once you do, then you have to maintain it for the next, however many years or months or whatever.
But that's still such a gray area, though, right? You're like, okay, I used AI and it wrote all this code and it works. Does it matter what the code really looks like then? Like, that's real. That's a hard dynamic. There's a huge gray area there. Like, it is. For the engineer, like the true engineer would be like, oh yeah, it matters a lot. Like the code's got to be this, the code's got to be that. But it's like, what if I just tell AI to fix that?
And I think that's the problem with like until people get in those vicious loops where they're like, okay, at a certain point, like you plateau, and it's like, I can't. The fixes you're making are way outside of your breadth of knowledge and your depth, and now you're just essentially offloading all your thinking onto this AI, and you don't know what's right and what's wrong, and then little bugs slip in, and you have so much trouble finding them, and then you're like, and then AI goes off, whatever, you've run out of credits, you're screwed. You're dead in the water.
I think I liken it to, I could go build a house. Like I can buy some wood, I could frame up the house, I could run some electrical, I could do all of it. But I don't understand the code, like the building codes, right? I don't know the building codes.
Yep.
I don't know about, this needs to be a king stud and a header needs to be there and the weight bearing and all these things and
already over my head. Yeah.
Why my house is gonna burn down if I run the electrical this way. I don't know any of that, but I could make it all work.
Yeah.
And eventually my house is gonna collapse and it's gonna catch on fire.
Yeah. Or like a little shake happens.
Something's gonna happen.
Music plays a little too loud.
We live in, right? Like you can slap a bunch of things together and you build like your little shack and it mostly is fine and you have shelter.
Yeah.
But it's not probably going to last very long and it might catch on fire randomly if you flip the light switch over there.
Did you hear what happened to this app, the T app? Are you familiar with this? So this
person, it was like a huge security leak or something, right?
Huge security, yeah, because they just like, I think essentially exposed like all their data like in an S3 bucket. Like it was publicly available and like driver's licenses. And I cruise Reddit sometimes and I'll read like vibe coders. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. If you're a business person, honestly, I would be vibe coding like hell to get my prototype out. And then I'd probably maybe hire developers later, whatever.
Great for prototyping.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Fantastic.
But actually doing, things like I'm working on data engineering and pipelines and things. This is where I see the mistakes can have more downstream effects. It can be worse, exposing data, having your keys slipped into things. I mean, I've seen this stuff on Reddit. People are like, oh, my key got exposed and I got a $10,000 bill.
You got to be smarter than the code. You got to be smarter than the AI. You have to be able to, and that's the problem, right? If you're like learning to code, somebody's new coming through your program, you're like, how do they know all those anti-patterns? How do I know all those rules? Now somebody listening to this right now is like, well, AI is going to get better and it's going to identify all those. Okay, well, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe so. It's also weird. I'm not an expert. I love using these tools. I buy them. I pay for purchase. But I'm like, what technology have we seen get exponentially better that has never plateaued? It's always strange to me. People say, wait till next year. And I'm like, what about other technologies? Did they just exponentially get better? Have we seen ChatGPT get between version like 4 to whatever we're on now, 4.1 or something? I think 5 is coming out. They haven't been like groundbreaking changes. So I'm just like a little skeptical that like in a year we're going to be at a point where like now we're really at that point, because all the CEOs have an incentive to kind of feed us that. Just wait 6 more months.
I have 2 AI startups that are part of our venture studio that we're building. And one of them has to do with like some lead qualification stuff. So I want to say, okay, only people that work at a company with 50 to 100 employees. Has to be greater than 50, less than 100. Guess what? Like a certain percentage of the time, AI cannot do that comparison.
Yeah.
I don't understand why, because it's, it's not good at deterministic things. It's not necessarily
the non-deterministic,
some of these things, right? And some of the models are better than others, but it's insane to me. Like I have these unit tests, like I have a whole battery of these sort of tests. It's like, oh, can it do number of employees? Can it do like all these things, right? They randomly fail.
Yeah, that's the scary part. That's a whole
They
new
randomly
world.
go.
Like writing unit tests with AI, the non-deterministic outputs. It's difficult because I was running that too at work. I'm like, how do I know when this prompt maybe changes because the underlying model changed? It's a black
Yeah.
box. You don't know. So it's like, oh,
And to me, that's a huge problem because with software engineering, we're plumbers, these inputs to be this output.
give the output exactly.
And now it goes through some like
Complete
wild
black box.
problem in the middle and some random shit comes out. So
Yeah.
in certain scenarios, that's great. It's fine. It's like, analyze this document, summarize it to me. There's really no wrong answer. Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. But I need to know like greater than 50, less than 100. Like that should work.
Yeah, and you think it would, but the more and more I've studied, like, okay, it goes from words to embeddings to these vectors, and then it translates these vectors back
And
to
it's text
words. Yeah, and that's the scary thing. They're not open source, so it's like you're just at the mercy of the company. And I think Cursor went down a few weeks ago with that big outage that happened with Google or something like that, GCP. And I just saw like, wow, this is also the interesting thing because all of us are using OpenAI or Claude or whatever. We're just wrappers around these things, and maybe we're using something else like RAG to use it. But once they go down, you're screwed. That's kind of your company.
Somebody posted a TikTok video the other day about the same thing. They were doing the comparison of the number. It was like 1.9 versus 1.11. It's like, of course, we know 1.9 is greater than 1.11, but all the AIs got it wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Not.
I can't build software
shocked.
with that.
No. It's and people like seem to think it's like some sentient being. Like I talked to friends that are like way outside of tech, and I'm like,
It's not
dude,
intelligent.
aren't you? It's not. I'm like, if you really think this thing, like, also, when are people going to make the cool AI stuff, like the thing that flips a burger or does or can go buy a plane ticket for me and like argue and haggle with different agents for that? No one's built that stuff yet, and I think that's because we're not at that point yet. But for some reason, people think it's going to take over all of software, which is really funny to me. I'm like, it can't even really go into my mail, and like, I wouldn't trust it to go through my mail and delete things for me yet.
Yeah, I just want no spam, please. Can you just delete all my
Can someone
spam?
work on that? Just do something cool like that, or
Let's
buy
start
plane
there.
tickets, or maybe like fold clothes, like a robot that does that. I'm kind of sick of all the more and more code tools.
But-
like we have enough.
But speaking of that, like household robot stuff, like some people write about this like dystopian future where, we all have robots in our house, and like, do we all have robot girlfriends or like all sorts of crazy stuff? Like,
Yeah, right.
that's like the end of humanity. Like,
Yeah, it sounds
Like-
super depressing.
that all sounds terrible.
Yeah.
I want to
I've
be Amish. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'd rather be. I hate that. I kind of hate that worldview. Like, we're gonna find other things to do. I'm like, what are those other things? Like, we're kind of made
No.
to work. Like, humans need to have a purpose, and it can't just be randomly entertaining other humans. Like, what is? I don't know. I just that whole weird dystopian
I've seen
reality
these movies.
is
I
crazy.
don't like this.
Yeah, right. We've all seen the movies. Right?
I'm out.
Let's not go there.
All right. Well, I really appreciate having you on the show today. I think there will forever be a need for software engineers. I do think they're going to need more of product creative understanding, business issues. I think it's more and more of the job, right? Like
100%.
we are going to be a little less in the weeds of the code, and we're going to have to be more on the product side. What do you think of that? Do you think that's going to be the case?
100%. Yeah,
always
that's
needed that,
but I think that's your superpower nowadays because that's also where we see a lot of Parsity students do. A lot of them go from like, oh, one guy was like a ambulance driver. Now he's in a company. Guess what? That like makes software for ambulance drivers because he has that business context and he can also like
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Industry
So now he
knowledge.
industry knowledge. But yeah, I see that as your superpower for sure. Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, if somebody wants to learn more about you, Parsity, where should they go?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Brian Jenney. You can go to parsity.io. I write a lot of more spicy stuff on Medium. Not too spicy, but I write stuff I don't normally write on LinkedIn on Medium. So you can check me out there too. And find me around the internet, any of those places.
All right, Brian. Thank you so much for being on the show, man. And thanks for having me on your podcast.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, check that one out while you're at it.
Tell everybody the name of your podcast.
Develop Yourself. Wow, what the hell? Yeah, geez. Can't believe I forgot about that. Develop Yourself podcast.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Cool. Thank you.
Before we wrap up today's episode, we have a special resource for you if you're looking to elevate your development team to have more of a product-driven mindset. I have a fantastic free ebook about turning your code-first team into a product-first team. please go to fullscaleteam.com/product-first-teams to download this free ebook. There's also a link in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Product Driven, and we'll see you in the next episode.